And we are ready to go. President Terrio, go ahead.
Thank you. Then I will call to order at now 10:01 a.m. teleconference meeting of the Board of Directors of Friday, March 25th, 2022. This meeting is being recorded. Madam Secretary, the roll call, please.
Thank you. Starting with Director Arnold. Is absent. Director Conroy. Is also absent. Director Garbarino.
Here.
Thank you. Director Giudice. Is absent. Director Grosball.
Here.
Director Hernandez.
Here.
Director Meston.
Here.
Director Milgar. Absent. Director Parr.
Present.
Director Rabbit.
Here.
Director Rodoni. Is absent. Director Snyder.
Here.
You. Director Stephanie. Is absent. Director Thier.
Here.
Second Vice President Hill.
Here.
First Vice President Cochran.
Here.
And President Terrio.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum. And I'm going to confirm staff. Dennis Mulligan.
Here.
Joe Wire.
Yes.
Ava Bauer-Furbish.
Present.
Tim Enolius.
Good morning.
Thank you. Dave Rivera.
Good morning, President.
Thank you. Mona Babauta. Not on the line. Jim Swindler.
Present.
Thank you. Kelly Hopper.
Present.
Thank you. That confirms everyone on the line.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, and thanks to everyone for joining us and for your patience as we continue to meet in this remote way. I'll ask board members if they have any questions or comments on the agenda items as we go through them. If there are questions, the Secretary or I will call on you. Following any discussion, we'll take the appropriate roll call vote. If you are not speaking, please mute your phones to minimize the noise on today's call, and remember to unmute and identify yourself when you are speaking. I am in a very urban setting here, and so you may occasionally get a little rumble in the background of buses and trucks going by, but that's unavoidable in my circumstance. Please follow along by referring to the page numbers located on the bottom right-hand corner of the meeting packet. Director Parr, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's my pleasure. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Parr. I think we were more together on that one than we've been in a long time. Before we move on to public comment under item 4, Madam Secretary, how many callers are we at now on the line today? Who might speak under public comment?
Thank you. I believe we're at 15 callers now.
Then we've allowed 30 minutes for public comments, but with the indulgence of the board and with the limitation of those commenters to 2 minutes, we may still run a bit over that if there are no objections from the board. If I don't hear any, and do I hear any? Then we'll allow that to proceed at 2 minutes each, and we'll run a bit past the 30 minutes, I think. Madam Secretary, please proceed to public comment.
Thank you. We're going to move on to agenda item number 4 for public comment for any and all items on today's agenda. If you wish to speak on an item on our agenda, please speak to it now. And Justine's on the line to assist in moderating our public comment line. Justine, go ahead and please introduce our first speaker.
Thank you. Good morning. Our first speaker is Manuel Gamboa. Manuel?
Morning.
Good morning. Go ahead.
Yes, to the board members and to the staff, my name is Manuel Gamboa. My son Kyle jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge September 2013. And I just want to give a shout out to all the continue work to try to prevent this from happening from the police patrol, from the Golden Gate, police people, and I guess now some of the contractors there. And of course, hopefully the finishing of the suicide deterrent that will prevent all. And as far as that goes, like I said, I just want to thank you for your continuous work on that, and talk to you guys next board member meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gamboa. Justine, the next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Dave Rohde. Mr. Rohde. Mr. Rohde, go ahead.
President Therold, board members, managers, and staff, good morning. My name is Dave Rohde. I'm with the Climate Reality Project. I started talking with you about the problems with renewable diesel nearly 3 years ago. Around the same time, this board unanimously passed a climate emergency resolution. But now, I hear you're planning to buy a new diesel-fueled ferry. Since declaring that climate change is an emergency, the Golden Gate Bridge District has taken no direct action to address it. Now you have the chance to move to an electric ferry, and you're saying they're not fast enough. The San Francisco Bay Area WETA will have its first electric ferry up and running by 2024, and it's just secured $3.4 million through the Passenger Ferry Grant Program to buy more. Just 5 months ago, I presented data proving the electric ferries being built today can make the Larkspur to San Francisco trip a mere 8 minutes slower than the catamarans you currently use. By the time you plan out the charging stations and are ready to purchase your first electric ferry, they'll be even faster. Where is your plan, your research, your timeline for moving to electric ferries and buses? Mr. Mulligan, you're an excellent administrator, so you know that you can't get from point A to point B without plotting a trajectory and committing to it. Let me put this in simple terms. You said you were going to be part of the solution. So far, you are not. Transportation accounts for 40% of greenhouse gases. We need to move to electrification as fast as we possibly can. And I firmly believe this board, calling on you superb administrative staff, can not only be part of the solution, but can be a shining example for the rest of the state and the rest of the country. Please consider these issues when you address transportation planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rohde. Justine, if you would, the next speaker.
Our next speaker is Shane Weinstein. Shane, go ahead. Shane?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, excellent. Good morning, Chair Terrio, his fellow director, Shane Weinstein, president of AT 1575, all the bus operators at Golden Gate. For many months, I have come to this meeting specifically to express, in public speaking, the dire need to market this great bus service, get prospective operators in the door, and get much-needed buses back out on the road. I would like all the directors to recall that we have lost roughly 80 operators since September 2020, and only one has fully graduated the driver training course and is out on the road serving our passengers. Furthermore, while other agencies in the Bay Area have greatly increased or gone to full pre-pandemic service, Golden Gate Transit just this month cut service. If you recall, about 30% of Route 150 trips to and from San Francisco were slashed on the weekends. These are transit-dependent riders that Golden Gate has now stripped 30% of their service away from them. Why? The public should not suffer because Golden Gate management feels as if they don't have the money or the operators to do the work. We have both. With 80 operators off of payroll, all the assistance from the federal government, including the new and unexpected $70 million, and the need from the public to have more transportation out there, we have the resources. We must take that payroll savings that we have lost from those 80 operators and invest that back into these hardworking essential bus operators and to the public who greatly need the trips. In August 2020, operator pay was slashed nearly 20 to 25% due to the lack of commute service needed. We understand that when San Francisco is shuttered, there's no need for buses to go down there, but that's no longer the case. Large businesses like Wells Fargo and Salesforce are headed back. Mayor Breed's out there working her tail off in different countries to promote San Francisco. We need to answer that bell as well. Soon you're going to hear that we're only carrying 32.5% of our normal pre-pandemic ridership. We need to compare apples to apples. We only have a 4 route out there. If we want to compare 32.5%, we need to compare that to all of the service that we had out there before. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein. Ms. Bach, Justine.
Our next
speaker, please.
Yes. Thank you, President Terrio. Our next speaker is Robert Cooper. Robert, go ahead. Robert Cooper. You might be muted on your side. Robert?
Good morning. This is Robert.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, board. My name is Robert Cooper. I'm an iron worker at the Golden Gate Bridge and a member of the Labor Coalition. We've been bargaining with the district for over 2 years. The bridge workers have done their best to keep the bridge in working condition while through the ongoing pandemic. We have rising cost of living and rising inflation. We also accepted a medical plan with a substantial savings to the district that we thought may translate into higher wages. There are a number of other agencies that have received very reasonable contracts. Meanwhile, the district has received a number of grants that have kept it funded, with most likely more to come. We're just asking for fair bargaining and some raises in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Cooper. Ms. Bach, next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Andy Zen. Andy, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, board. My name is Andy Zen, and I'm an iron worker at the Golden Gate Bridge. I used to live in the city because I thought that it was pretty affordable, and I have been working for the district like 10 years. But right now, since the cost of living is getting higher and higher, I have to look for a place that's far away from here. And it's not only like that. The gas is going up, the food is going up, and comparing to our wage, and it's not really increased a lot. But right now, I'm hoping that in the future we can get a fair, at least a fair promotion, fair wage. So, they can at least match up with the cost of living, in the Bay Area. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ed. Ms. Bach, next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Adam Smith. Adam, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. My name is Adam Smith. I'm a vessel master at Golden Gate Ferry. Thank you for taking the time to hear me. I'd like to point out, I'll second what the others said as far as the cost of living. We know that the inflation rate is up to about 5.2%. The district and the coalition have been compromising and trying to work together for 2 years. We've now been working for 2 years without an agreement. I'd like to urge the board to agree to the coalition's most recent proposal. I'd like to remind you that the district has received, due to the lobbying and negotiations from our management, we have a $75 million grant to help keep us whole while we're reopening. It's been a tough couple of years, and everyone's still been showing up to work. I'd also like to remind you that we're in the same position that every other business out there is in. We're shorthanded, and it's very difficult to attract and retain talent. We've lost a considerable number of vessel masters, and the only way to retain them and attract new talent is to have an agreement in place. Otherwise, it doesn't show very well for us, and it's hard to attract them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Bach, the next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Marina Pacitano. Marina, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. Good morning, President Terrio and directors. I'm Marina Pacitano, Chair of the Golden Gate Bridge Labor Coalition. Next Thursday, we will celebrate Cesar Chavez Woodbee's 95th birthday. And he was a man of deep conviction and belief in humanity who spent his life working to get justice for farm workers. March 17th of 1966, my mother joined thousands of people who marched from Delano to Sacramento in support of the farm workers. I wanted to go, but she said I was too young and it could be too dangerous. In March 10th of 1968, during a farm worker rally, it was then Bobby Kennedy announced his run for president of the U.S. And during a strike in 1968, our International Longshore, ILWU, refused to handle grapes and cargo that was loaded by strikebreakers. I bring this up, and that just touches, just a small amount, but I bring it up because he was a labor hero, and he must be remembered. And we were good enough together to get that as a holiday to celebrate his great work. He said, we cannot seek achievement for ourselves and forget about progress and prosperity to our community. Our ambitions must be broad enough to include the aspirations and the needs of others for their sakes and our own. And it's with this in mind that I ask you to approve the Labor Coalition's proposal. As you've heard, we've worked tirelessly for over 30 meetings with 2 years to try to find a solution that's fair and that our members will agree to. We've added an extra 2 years on this proposal, and our 5-year proposal is less than 10% of that grant you just received. The members of our coalition are struggling to make ends meet with the high rising inflation, as you heard, of over 5.2% in the Bay Area. Let's close out this negotiations with this fair agreement for your workers and your members. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Secretano. Ms. Bach, the next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is David Tuttle. David, go ahead.
Good morning. David Tuttle. I am the business agent for the operating engineers as well as the co-chair of the Labor Coalition. I will echo what my sister in arms said a moment ago about the importance of labor and the importance of our process as we go forward. We've worked for 2 years to try and get you to this point. The Bridge District has received a $75 million grant, which we believe part of which can be allocated towards the raises that we are seeking. I also want to bring home, I think, some of the personal nature of the COVID pandemic. I represent 80 people at the bridge. Of those 80 people, over 15% have contracted COVID over the last 2 years, 4 of which ended up in the hospital, 1 of which ended up in the hospital for weeks. They came to work every day. They risked their lives to make sure that your bridge district was effective and that people who came to see it were safe. They continue to do that. I have members who are sleeping in their cars in your parking lot because they can't afford to drive home at night because they have to be back within 6 hours. You need to take care of your people, otherwise they will leave. The offer that we have put forward is fair, it is reasonable, you can afford it. It is time for us to finalize this process and so that we can all move forward and tackle the next round of problems that I know are lurking around the corner. I appreciate your time this morning. I appreciate the work that we're doing together, and I urge you to accept the coalition's offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tuttle. Ms. Bach, the next speaker.
Our next speaker is Daniel Glassner. Daniel?
Yes, thank you for taking the time to hear us. My name is Dan Glasner. I'm a vessel master for the ferry division, and I'd just like to thank you for considering our cost of living increases. As over the last several contracts, I think they've been coming in at about half the actual cost of living. So I think we're probably making maybe 5% or 3% less every year because they just don't keep up with the cost of living. And I mean, of course, the possibility of buying a house on my pay scale is out of the question for Marin County. But I think it's important that we keep in mind that as captains, no one can be late for work. And so for us to ensure that we're early for work every day, even if there's traffic, if you look in the parking lot, there's always 3 or 4 captains half an hour early sleeping in the parking lot, or not sleeping, but waiting in the parking lot because we have to be very early. Traffic can't keep us from, being on time. However, we all have to live in the East Bay or Sonoma County or 45 minutes to an hour or an hour and 15 minutes away because none of us can afford to live anywhere near Larkspur. And every year, I think we get further and further behind just due to the cost of living and real estate increases. And we just are making less every year. So I appreciate you considering what the real cost of living is compared to what we've been trying to negotiate for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Glasner. Ms. Bach, the next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Jose Velasquez. Jose?
Good morning, everybody. Board members. My name is Jose Velasquez. I'm a dispatcher for the Golden Gate Transit Bus Division. And for the last year, we've been coming to work every single day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our crew, our dispatchers have given a lot for our jobs. We really like where we work. However, as mentioned before from our previous speakers, cost of living is it's one of the things that we have that is really detrimental for us. It's really affecting us. Most of us live outside, and we have to be at work on a daily basis to make sure that our buses go out and serve the public. I am begging and I'm asking the board member to consider to give us and to meet the proposal that the coalition has brought up for the raises. It's something that we really do need. We've been bargaining for over 2 years, and it would really move us along in this situation that we're in. We greatly appreciate you for everything you've done, but please consider that proposal that we've put in on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Velasquez. Ms. Bach, the next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Eddie Reyes. Eddie, go ahead.
Good morning, President Terrio and board members. Thank you for taking the time to hear us out. I am president of Ironworkers Local 377 in the Bay Area, and I represent all the maintenance ironworkers that maintain the iconic Golden Gate Bridge. I urge the board to seriously consider the last offer that was put forward by the Labor Coalition. Seems more than fair. We've been bargaining for over 2 years now, and our members of the coalition need a serious raise to continue to try to stay in the Bay Area and make up what has been lost over these last 2 years. We've been showing up every day. Yeah, I have many members that have been sick through COVID and have lost time bargaining with other building trades in the area. I know that the trades are falling further and further behind that are working for the Bridge District. We need to maintain or try to keep up with these other trades, or else it'll be very hard to attract new workers when positions become available. I urge the staff to please consider and approve the last proposal by the coalition. Let's end this now so the board can focus on more important issues. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brother Reyes. Ms. Bach, the next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Joseph Martinell. Joseph?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Members of the board, first of all, thank you for considering and listening to our concerns today. It's been a really ugly process for the board. It's been an ugly process for management. It's been an ugly process for labor. But we believe we're finally able to come together and reach a solution that will give our people a chance to feel good about themselves, a chance to thrive in the Bay Area. It is not easy for our members. I know some of them drive an hour and a half to get to their location so they can serve the public. I must compliment the members of the coalition for their ability to stay together, to fight hard but fair. Please consider this offer by the coalition. We've gone way beyond where we wanted to be. The medical change was probably positive in the long run, but it saved the district a lot of money. It was traumatic for our members to change doctors. It's very confusing, but we worked with them and we pulled it together. This raise is not only a good solution, but it's fair. I understand the cost of living in the Bay Area is 5%, but that's not a true cost of living because they don't include a lot of things that are factors. And every day that I go to the gas station, it's 5-6 cents a gallon more than it was the day before. And keep in mind, our people are driving in from long distance. God bless you all, and please consider our proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinell. Ms. Bach, the next speaker.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Josh Morgan. Josh, go ahead. Josh Morgan.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
No worries.
Hi, my name is Josh Morgan. I am a bus servicer here with the district. I am the shop steward for us Teamsters. And I want to thank you for assembling and allowing us to speak. We have been continuing to work throughout the pandemic. My coworkers and I have continued to work without a contract in good faith that the district would make a fair offer when funds were secured. I got sick due to work, which subsequently got my whole family sick. We all got vaccinated due to mandate and the potential protection to others. We all had really adverse effects of that shot that we all chose to get, and still we have no contract. The cost of living is continuing to go up around the Bay Area, and we have not been compensated as the district said that they were. Promises were made, and nothing of fairness has been offered yet. The district has just received $75 million and many millions more before. How do you value us as employees? Please listen to what you've heard today and make a fair contract that we can accept so that we can all move forward and get through this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Ms. Bach, you have a couple more speakers.
I do. Our next speaker is Barbara LeBlanc. Barbara, go ahead. Barbara?
Hi, this is Barbara. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Board, for listening to us. My name is Barbara LeBlanc. I am a Customer Relations Assistant for Golden Gate. I work in San Rafael. I have worked every day since the pandemic started in office dealing with the public. I want to also remind everybody that we're here to serve the public, and we have shortchanged our riders constantly for the last 2 years with not making our service reliable for our customers. Our customers need to get to work. They need to have reliable service so they can continue. As we all know, many of us have to drive in. I work really early hours, and it is not feasible for me to take public transit from where I live, where I can afford to live, to get to work. And the traffic is getting ridiculous. Part of that has to do with the 101 corridor and not having the service that we need for our riders to get back out of their cars and onto buses. I really am urging the board to please ask us to do the contract the way the last one that our unions have asked for. I don't think it's asking a whole lot. We have bent to your guys' needs, such as the medical, which to my taste is not satisfactory from what I had before, but we still gave here and there with you guys, and I really like it if you guys would help us get to a good place, and so we can move forward and help our customers and bring back service for our customers. It's really important. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. LeBlanc. Justine, the next speaker, please.
Our last speaker is David Piltel. David, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. Good morning, David Pilpelt. So several points on item 5A on the minutes. If I have anything that I find on the minutes, I will communicate that with the district secretary's office. Thanks. Although the minutes have been pretty darn good last few months. Thanks. On item 6A, the general manager's report is thorough and useful as always, and I learned more about Norma Jellison there that I did not know. So thank you. On item 6B2A, the Local 6 MOU.
How did I sound?
Excuse me?
Go ahead, Mr. Pilpel. I don't know who that was. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. Thanks. On the Sorry. Am I still here?
Yeah.
You are.
You disappeared for a moment. Go ahead, please. And
okay.
Let's please get to Mr. Pilpel the appropriate time.
Okay. It's not you. It's me. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. Still here. So on the Local 6 MOU, and as relates to labor relations generally, if it's possible to have like a short one-page or a couple paragraph summary of proposed terms and costs of an MOU in the public packet, that would allow more informed public comment. Perhaps you'll have another opportunity for comment later in the meeting after you've disclosed the terms and costs, but it would be great to just have something in advance. I'm sure the district and perhaps all of you know what's going on here. I, as a member of the public, can't comment meaningfully on that at this time, and I would love to be able to do that. There was some discussion last night at the BART board on SB 917, the Seamless Transit Transformation Act. Since there's no GAPI meeting this month, perhaps the general manager could comment on that or bring information on that back to you next month at GAPI or the GM's report. I won't recap any of my comments yesterday on various topics, but thank you for listening to me on those issues. And finally, since there may be an increase in COVID with the latest, whatever it is, 2B2 subvariant, I hope that everyone stays healthy and we can do this again next month. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Pilpel. Ms. Bach, do we have any others?
That's our last speaker, President Theriault.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bach. It's traditional at this point to give General Manager Mulligan the opportunity to respond to some of the public comment. General Manager Mulligan.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, members of the public. First, I want to thank all of the speakers. I especially want to thank Manuel Gamboa. He or his wife have spoken at every meeting of this board except for two since their son jumped off the bridge in September, almost 8.5 years ago. And so I thank them for their advocacy and their support. I want to thank all of our employees that spoke and their union representatives. We have a very talented, hardworking group of employees, and we are in negotiations with them. I want to thank them and their unions for working with us through the darkest days of the pandemic and making changes to how we provide medical benefits, still providing great medical benefits, but in a more cost-effective fashion. We are in negotiations. We do not negotiate publicly, but our Labor Advisory Committee did meet this morning, and they will continue to meet after this meeting today as we sort through the issues so that we can continue bargaining in good faith to reach an amicable settlement as soon as possible. Mr. Dave Rohde spoke about electric ferry. We work very closely with WIDA, or SFA Ferry as they're branded. They are procuring an electric ferry to go from Treasure Island to San Francisco. It's a very short trip across, so the speed profile is less important. We look forward to learning a lot as they roll that vessel out. Our Larkspur service is a high-speed service. At this juncture, there is no high-speed boats available that can meet not just the speed profile, but also the energy profile with respect to recharging between trips. But it is something that we're monitoring. In all likelihood, the first electric ferry that we will see will be a retrofit of one of our Spalding vessels in a couple of years to be used in the Angel Island service or the Tiburon or Sausalito service. Those are shorter trips, so they don't need to have the same speed profile as trips from Larkspur. And to remind folks that if we put a slow boat out there, folks can choose to drive or take a bus in lieu of riding the ferry boat. So meeting the customer's expectations is important. Our customers do have choices. And finally, with respect to ridership in the quarter, which two of the speakers spoke to, Mr. Shane Weinstein, as well as one of our talented customer service reps, I will speak about that as part of my general manager's report. That concludes my responses, President Theriault.
Thank you, Mr. Mulligan. And thanks to all the speakers. This concludes public comments for today's agenda. Madam Secretary, please continue on to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you. Item 5 is to approve the consent calendar, including approval of minutes from the committee and board meetings in February, as well as ratification of actions, previous actions by auditor controller. The consent calendar is located on pages 5 to 35 of your packet. And prior to this morning's meeting, Director Thier contacted me with a correction under the GM report of the February 25th board meeting. Specifically, she asked that on page 23 of your packet that her comment be amended to add at the end or other requirements. So the new line will read, Director Thier requested a report about the electric vehicle purchase program. She asked if part of the issue is the Buy America requirements or other requirements. And that is what I have before you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Are there any additional corrections or questions or comments from board members on the consent calendar? Hearing none, do I have a motion? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Move approval.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. And there's a second. Madam Secretary, then a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. We're voting on item 5 with a first and second, starting with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Conroy. Absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice. Absent. Director Grosball.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni is absent. Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Theriault.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 12 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. So motion passes, and let's move along to the next item.
Thank you. Item 6A is the report of the general manager, and the staff report can be found on pages 37 to 47 of the packet, and Dennis Mulligan is here to present his report. Dennis, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Secretary, members of the board, members of the public. My written report is before you. I'll highlight a couple of items and provide an additional update on the reopening. But first, I want to start with a bit of good news. I'm pleased to inform you that on March 7th, the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Transit Administration announced that they would award the Bridge District $75 million in American Rescue Plan funding. This was part of a nationwide competitive program, and it's one-time COVID relief funds that we will be using to pay ongoing costs for providing bus and ferry service and to backfill the missing bridge tolls and transit fares associated with the continued diminished travel in the Golden Gate Corridor. The good news is that the federal government felt it was appropriate to give us $75 million as part of a competitive nationwide program. Out of all of the hundreds and hundreds of transit agencies in the country, only 35 transit agencies received funding. While it's good news they gave us $75 million, the bad news is the federal government saw fit to give us so much money because it's a testament to the extent of our continued financial hurdles. We submitted information to them with respect to revenues coming in and expenses going out. And based on that, they felt that we should be one of 35 only nationwide to get this money. But we're thrilled to get the money. It's a vital lifeline. It continues by a couple of years how far out the fiscal cliff hits us. It is important to emphasize, though, it is one-time money. And once it's spent, we will be left to our own devices to cover our expenses from our tolls and transit fares, which go up a very modest amount most years. But this money will keep us going for quite some time. So I want to thank President Biden, Secretary Buttigieg, the Federal Transit Administration, Speaker Pelosi, the entire Bay Area delegation for recognizing our need for this additional COVID relief money. And I want to give a special shout out to MTC and their staff, because if they had not jumped through hoops to allocate all of the region's ARP money quickly, we would not have been eligible for this program. But strategically, they moved very quickly, and so the Bay Area did well in this program. But once again, the Bay Area and the Bridge District did well because of our challenges. With respect to travel in the Golden Gate Corridor, travel in the corridor still remains well below pre-pandemic levels, whether by bridge, bus, or ferry. Unless people are swimming across, people are not going from the North Bay into San Francisco at nearly the numbers they were before the pandemic. And it's particularly during the commute period that we're seeing a small fraction of travel. Most other travel has returned. As the community has navigated the pandemic, you will all have noticed that there's a return of local travel as evidenced by congestion on your local streets and Highway 101 in the North Bay. But at this juncture, most of those trips are not going into San Francisco. So we are adding service back incrementally and slowly as our customers return. Last week, Macy's and Salesforce invited their workers back, but people couldn't overnight arrange for dog walkers or after school care for their children to immediately return in significant numbers. But we are slowly adding service back. We've noticed sufficient demand increasing over the last couple of weeks that on Monday of this week, we added back Mill Valley to San Francisco commute trips, 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. Many of you may be approached by constituents or employees saying we need to add back lots of more service. There's tremendous demand for service. I wish to clarify that there's strong interest in transit service. People are asking, when are you bringing it back? But the demand is not there. Interest is not demand. We brought back Route 4 service this week. We did tremendous outreach and we will continue to. Today, the 4 morning trips carried less than 5 people per trip on average from the North Bay into San Francisco. Wednesday, though, seems to be our popular day. We had 1 trip carry as many as 36. That's not a full bus, but it's quite heartening and exciting. However, the next busiest trip on Wednesday, headed southbound across the bridge on this new Mill Valley commute service, had only 8 customers. So people call up and say, when are you bringing back my bus? But as we put back that bus or ferry, they're slowly coming back. We know they're going to come back in some different fashion, and we will continue to add back service. And I wish to be clear that we're adding it back in a manner that allows us to stretch out that one-time federal COVID relief money to last as long as possible, because we don't want it to run out before our passengers or customers, particularly on the bridge, come back. So we have added back incrementally service. Like I said, Wednesday, the last trip in the morning from Mill Valley had 36 customers on it. Folks aren't driving in either during the commute period because the commute period is where bridge traffic is still significantly down. With respect to ferry service, once again, Wednesday, we had a trip that left San Francisco at 5:30 p.m., headed to Larkspur that had 300 passengers on it, actually 302 to be precise. That's exciting. It's not a sellout. The boat has a capacity of 450, but we're seeing slow, steady, and modest growth in bus and ferry ridership. We're slowly adding service back. So earlier this morning, we announced that we'll add 1 extra ferry trip from San Francisco to Larkspur in the evening starting on April 4th. That's in response to the fact that we're seeing things starting to slowly fill up, and we see opportunities to add service. And so that is our mantra, that we will continue to add service back slowly and incrementally as we see a return of our customers. For the week of March 6th, which is just before a couple of those openings, we did see a slight uptick in transit ridership. However, for the week of March 6th, ridership was down on our buses by 67%. So we only carried 30% of our normal bus ridership. And our ferry ridership was down 71%. We only carried 29% of our normal ferry ridership. That having been said, being down 71% is light years better than being down 95% or 90%, which is where we were not too long ago. So we're excited to see downtown San Francisco open up. The reopening is happening slowly, and we will continue to add service back. The fact that we're seeing fewer people drive into the city and take our ferries and buses does result in less revenue. So the week of March 6th, revenues from tolls and transit fares were down $1 million compared to the same week pre-pandemic. So that shows how we're spending that money that the federal government is giving us, is we're spending it to make up for money that we're not taking in because people are not traveling in the corridor. There's other items in my report, but I will go to retirements and recognitions. I will mention one name that's not in this month's report and will be in next month's report because you still have the opportunity to say hello and thank you to her. In the next month's report, you'll see that Patsy Wela is retiring on April 1st. And so these are her last few days with the district. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention her, particularly since many of you work directly with her since she's in the district secretary's office. But in my report this month, I am pleased to announce the retirement of Neville Estupinon. He's a bus operator who was originally hired on September 18th, 1989. And so he's retiring after 32 years, 6 months, and 11 days of service. And we wish him a long and healthy retirement, and we thank him for his service. It's also my pleasure to announce the retirement of Stephen Safford, another bus operator. He originally joined the district on January 5th, 1996, and he's been with us for 26 years, 1 month, and 24 days of service. And we thank him, and our customers thank him for his service. We also had another bus retirement, Patricia de la Cerda Gray, and she retired after many years of service also. She had 26 years and 1 month of service with the district. She originally joined us on January 5th, 1996. Prior to joining us, she worked as a customer service rep for Sprint, and she was able to maintain a safe and accident-free record during her service with the district. So we cannot thank her enough. And she states that his quote, "It has been a pleasure to work with some of the finest drivers for more than 26 years, and it has been the best place to work. Spending time getting to know my coworkers from all different backgrounds was the best. Thank you to all of you," unquote. So we wish her all the best in a long and happy retirement. Here at the bridge, Arthur Fields is retiring. He is a bridge lane worker. He retires on March 31st after 24 years and 26 years of service. He originally joined the district as a temporary part-time bridge lane worker on March 8th, 1998, and we wish him a long and happy retirement in his upcoming travels. That is it for retirements. We have several presentations. We want to recognize 25 years of service and thank Matthew Corbett, who's a bus operator. He celebrated 25 years of service on March 3rd. He joined on March 3rd, 1997. Of note, he was the Employee of the Month for the district in May of 2005. He has many accommodation letters from customers with respect to his great driving skills. Prior to district service, he drove charter buses and airport service buses. And in his free time, Mr. Corbett enjoys camping, fishing, and riding old trains. I also want to acknowledge and recognize Norma Jellison for 20 years of service with the district. She's our real estate services and property development manager. She joined the district as a real estate specialist on March 4th, 2002. She was the Employee of the Month for November of 2015. And she negotiates and manages lease, licenses, and permits for all 3 divisions, including the joint powers agreement we just did for Angel Island Ferry Service, the lease for the Tiburon Ferry Landing, the San Francisco Midday Bus Lot that we have in downtown San Francisco, the lease for the use of the Salesforce Transit Center. And she's just a vital member of our team here. Prior to joining the district, she worked as a real estate specialist and contractor officer for the U.S. Postal Service. In her free time, she is with the Whale Watch Program Coordinator and docents for Stewards of the Coast in Redwoods at Bodega Head and the Coastal Advocate. I also want to recognize and acknowledge for 20 years of service, Charlie Harris. Charles joined the district on March 14th of 2002. He's a resident of Petaluma, where he lives with his spouse Olga and their children Stacy, Katie, and Johnny. He enjoys music. He's a very talented electric bass guitarist, and he plays in various bands, currently the band known as the Grateful Tuna. And so congratulations to Charlie for his great service as an engineering contracts assistant. Then for the Employee of the Month for March of 2022, after reviewing nominations submitted by fellow employees, the Employee of the Month committee selected bus mechanic Robert Pistolera as the Employee of the Month. He was recently appointed as an acting chief mechanic. He's recognized for his professionalism, his attitude, his problem-solving skills, and his ability to quickly get up to speed in many new roles, including his current one. He's a very dedicated employee, always ready to help when needed. Some fellow employees describe him as a positive influence on the department, a true professional who's always trying to help out and encourage the next generations of mechanics to grow and be their best. That can-do attitude and that willingness to help grow others and his happy attitude is well received by all around him. He joined the district as a mechanic on July 9th of 2012. Prior to joining the district, he was a mechanic at Bayshore International and also at Mill Valley Refuse and also at Ken Borden Trucking. He was born in Petaluma, California, where he attended high school in Santa Rosa. He attended Sonoma State, where he earned a Bachelor's of Science. and he's been a resident of Santa Rosa since 1978. He enjoys gardening, camping, dirt bike riding, skiing, fishing, and hunting. And he is a proud member of our team, and hats off to him on behalf of the entire district. That concludes my report, and I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Mulligan. Are there any directors with questions or comments on the General Manager's report?
This is Dick. I did have one question.
Go ahead, Director Grossbaugh.
Thank you. Dennis, our good friend Dave Brody keeps trying to educate us on global warming. He seemed to suggest that we don't have any written plan with respect to implementing electric cars and electric vehicles and so forth, ferries and so forth. Would you remind us, what do we have a document since we passed that resolution? Have we prepared a plan over the next few years?
Yes, we've prepared a couple of things. Most noteworthy, the board adopted a zero-emission bus plan. We have a roadmap to electrify our bus fleet or to go to zero emissions, whether it's electrification or hydrogen fuel cells. And the board adopted that with the understanding that if grant funds came available sooner to implement it faster, that we would proceed in an even faster basis. With respect to buses, thus far, the Federal Transit Administration will not provide funding to replace a bus unless it's at least 12 years old. And most of our buses are relatively newer, so our timeline has us out a ways. Also, currently for the double axles and back buses, the over-the-road coaches, kind of a Greyhound or Google-style bus, those currently are not made electric to meet the range profile that we have. I believe it was Director Rodoni who made a comment that he visited the Gillig bus plant recently, and they said that they're not making a 45-foot electric bus, just 40-foot electric bus because of the technology challenges. On the ferry side, we're working with the California Air Resources Board. We're working with the other passenger vessel entities in California. We're exploring technology, and we have done some preliminary work. But the challenge we have on our Larkspur service is the length of the trip and the speed at which our customers wish to travel by ferry. So that is challenging. But we, like I said, we do envision retrofitting one of our Spalding vessels. The Spalding vessel can accommodate additional weight, and it can give up some space to accommodate batteries and electric drives as the technology gets better. And we'll have to do some shoreside improvements. As part of the new bipartisan infrastructure law, the district is participating with other transit agencies in the Bay Area, exploring doing joint applications and joint procurements for electric buses and the infrastructure to implement them. So the board's adopted a couple of things. I clearly recognize we're not moving as quickly as Mr. Rohde would like. I acknowledge that he speaks every month, and he does not agree with the California Air Resources Board when it comes to renewable diesel, and that he wishes that we operate it much faster, and that he believes that we should have electric ferries in our next procurement. But our next boat is tied to the Larkspur service, and that service at this juncture, the technology just doesn't exist to provide a viable vessel for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Mulligan and Director Grossbaugh. Are there any other directors with questions or comments for the General Manager? Hearing none, then Madam Secretary, let's go on to the next item.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item 6B, and that's report of the attorney. The staff report is found on page 49, and we have Kim Manolius on the line to present his report. Mr. Manolius, go ahead.
Thanks, Amarat. Good morning, everybody. My written report, as Amarat said, is before you. I'm happy to take any questions. We will not have the closed session item that's listed on the agenda. It's 6B1A, but we will move to an open session item as indicated on the agenda. So if there are no questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to Molly Caban to handle that open session item.
Thank you, Mr. Manolius. Are there any questions for Mr. Manolius before he turns it over to Ms. Caban?
Tim, is this item that you and I emailed about? Stick around.
Yes, Director Grossbaugh, it is.
All right, I'm going to abstain and get off the call for a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm sorry. Anyone else with questions for Mr. Manolius?
Mr. President, this is Director Hernandez. May I be recognized?
Yes, go ahead, please, Director Hernandez.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to recuse myself at this time based on potential conflicts in my participation of the discussion. Thank you. And I'd ask, please, for staff to notify me when it's safe for me to come back onto the call. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hernandez. Staff, I'm sure you'll handle that. Anyone else for Mr. Manolius? Then, Mr. Manolius, you'll hand it off to Ms. Kagan.
Thanks very much.
Good morning, everyone. This is Molly Cabin, the district's labor negotiator. I'm bringing to you this morning a tentative agreement between the district and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 6, the IBEW, the union that represents the electricians and the communications technicians at the district. We've had long, drawn-out discussions with the IBEW over wage increases to the electricians. There's been dispute over the appropriate comparators to determine what the market rate is for electricians as a justification for increasing their wages. And we went to impasse proceedings, at least the beginning stages, which included mediation. At the mediation, we were able to settle the wage dispute and come to a tentative agreement, which we are seeking approval from you this morning to ratify that agreement. And the only terms we are seeking to ratify are wages, because the electricians have agreed to the other two tentative agreements that the coalition has agreed to that were presented to you in September. So I drafted a memo, brief memo, so you could see the terms of the tentative agreement in front of you, but essentially we have wage increases on the following schedule: $1.82 increase upon ratification, $1.82 increase on July 1 of this year, and $1.82 increase on January 1 of 23. And that equates to, I believe, 9.5% of wages over what we're looking at as a 3-year period, because the last wage increase for this group was in 2019. There was no increase in 2020 and no increase for this group in 2021. So we're seeking approval for that increase. We have also tentatively agreed to a $500 lump sum payment to the electricians, which is the equivalent of what was given to the rest of the coalition unions in October. The IBEW was not part of that settlement, so they didn't get it at the time. And then the IBEW will also sign on to the previous coalition agreements that they did not sign on before, including the transition to CalPERS medical plans. And the contract term will be until June 30th, 2023. The electricians have already ratified this agreement, so approval from this board is the last step for implementation. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Caven. Are there board members with questions or comments on Ms. Caven's report and recommendation? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on the recommendation?
We're going to poll the public line since this is the first time they've heard these terms. So if you could just give us 1 second to do so, and I will be right back.
Thank you.
We do have one speaker. It's Mr. Pilpel, and he's going to be joining us in 1 second.
Okay.
David, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. Thank you. Go ahead.
Great. Thanks. So just to follow up on my earlier comments, I have no objection to the proposed MOU. The material terms seem fine. It seems like this is a good resolution to the latest issue and successor MOU. I mean, the good news is it's 15 months from now. The bad news is it's only 15 months from now, and so you'll be back at it before too terribly long. I guess to follow on my earlier point, in the future, if there's a way to take whatever memo Ms. Caven just referred to and make the material terms public with, the dollar amounts and the triggers and the whatever, and just have some further statement from staff that you believe that this will cost $48,000 more for the rest of this fiscal year and $215,000 for next fiscal year, and it's included in the current year operating budget, and it'll be included in next year's operating budget. The district has sufficient resources to do this, blah, 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 blah. Just some public summary of the terms and costs. That would make me feel even better than I do now, if that's possible. But again, I have no objection, and in fact, I support this action. So thanks for listening, and thanks to the team and the good work on all sides to make this happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Pelpel. And is that the only speaker, Madam Secretary?
That is, thank you.
Okay. Then I would be looking for a motion on the ratification of a Memorandum of Understanding with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, EW Local 6.
Director Hill, I'll move.
There are various motions and seconds called out there. Madam Secretary, I'm sure you can work out of them what you need. And let's have a roll call vote.
Thank you. We're voting on item 6B2 with the first and second, and I'll start with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Conroy is also absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosboll has recused himself. Director Hernandez has also recused herself. Director Maston.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder. Director Snyder. Director Snyder, double checking one more time. I'll circle back just in case you're having a problem with the mute button. Director Stephanie. Absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Terrio.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I'll circle back. Director Snyder. Okay, he might have left our call. So you have 10 ayes.
10 ayes is just enough to do it, as I recall. So the motion passes. Thank you to the EW and our staff for achieving this agreement at good long last. These things are never easy, and we have others. Before us in the not too distant future. One hopes. Madam Secretary, the next item, please.
Item number 60 is the report of the Chief Engineer, and that detailed report can be found on page 25 of your Building and Operating Committee meeting packet. Ava Bauer-Furbish is on the line to present her report. Ava, go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Amoret. My written report is before the board, and I would like to provide a brief status of the progress on the construction of the suicide deterrent system. As I mentioned in my reports on previous occasions, the contractor has to fabricate a special apparatus that will be used to install the net on the suspension bridge. So I'm pleased to report that our senior steel inspector, Tom Birchall, went to the fabrication shop and reported back that the 2 spoolers are ready to be shipped to the contractor's yard here in Richmond sometime next week. So this is a really good progress. With respect to the North Approach Viaduct, on the east side of the viaduct, the contractor completed strengthening of floor beams, and that strengthening is required to take loads that will be imposed by the net. So because that strengthening is now complete, the contractor is moving work access from the west side to the east side of the viaduct, and this will be followed by the installation of the net support arms. There is also progress on the south approach viaduct. The contractor began installation of the work access system on the east side of the viaduct. And once again, when that access system is installed, the contractor will start installation of net support arms. Also, it is a work that is happening in offices. The contractor is working on design and work plan for the access system that will be used to install net support arms and net itself around the main towers of the suspension bridge. So with this, I'll be happy to answer any question the board may have for me.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer-Furbush. Are there questions or comments for Ms. Bauer-Furbush on her report? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, next item on the agenda, please.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item 8 since there are no other reports under item 7. Item 8A is the report of the Building and Operating Committee meeting on Thursday, March 24th, and summary of recommendations for this meeting is found on page 53 of your packet. I'll turn it back over to you, President Dario.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Fellow directors, the action items under 8A were discussed in detail at yesterday's Building and Operating Committee under the able chairmanship or chairpersonship of Chair Garbarino. So before coming to the board for full board for action, excuse me. The conversation on the 3 items was robust, and the board appreciates the presentations and responses by staff. Chair Garbarino, please begin your committee's report to the board.
Thank you, President Dario. I agree that the presentations by staff are insightful and as in the dialogue among my fellow colleagues. The Building and Operating Committee met yesterday and is recommending authorization of board agenda item number 8A1 to approve award of contract number 2021 BT075 Santa Rosa Bus Facility Resurfacing to Argonaut Constructors of Santa Rosa, California in the amount of $1,429,211. And to establish a construction contingency for the contract in the amount of $214,382, equal to 15% of the contract award amount as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
Thank you, Chair Garbarino. Is there a motion on the item?
Director Maston.
There is a second on the item. Yeah.
Director Maston seconds.
There is the second, excuse me. Are there questions or comments from board members on the item? Hearing none. Time, Madam Secretary, for another roll call vote.
Thank you. We have a first and a second on item 8A1, starting with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Conroy. Is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice. Absent. Director Grosboll.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Milgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Radoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie. Absent. Director Thier.
Yes.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Theriault.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 13 ayes.
I would say that the item is adopted. Chair Garbarino, please continue your report.
Thank you. The Building and Operating Committee is recommending authorization of board agenda item number 8A2 to 1, authorize execution of the 6th Amendment to Professional Services Agreement number 2018B075 Golden Gate Bridge Physical Suicide Deterrent Net System Fabrication Shop Inspection Services with David Engineering, LLC, Chicago, Illinois, in an amount not to exceed $134,000 for the continuation of the Suicide Deterrent Net System Fabrication Inspection Services. 2, authorize execution of Professional Services Agreement number 2021B-073, Golden Gate Bridge Physical Suicide Deterrent System Maintenance Traveler Fabrication Shop Inspection Services with Smith Emery Laboratories of San Francisco in an amount not to exceed $2,600,000, subject to the district receiving the California Department of Transportation's approval of the PSA prior to its execution. Establish a 10% contingency for PSA number 2021B-073 in the amount of $260,000. And 3, authorize an increase in the amount of $2,290,000 in the FY 2021-22 Bridge Division capital budget for the Golden Gate Bridge Physical Suicide Deterrent System project, as concurred with the Finance Auditing Committee and as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
And so there's another motion, and do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns from board members on this item? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, another roll call vote.
Thank you. Voting on item 8A2 with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is also absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosboll.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Terrio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 13 ayes.
And another motion passes. Chair Garbarino, you have more for us, I think.
Yes, thank you. The Building and Operating Committee is recommending authorization of board agenda item number 8A3 to authorize an increase to the contract contingency for contract number 2020F047, Ferry Fleet Scheduled Dry Dockings and Capital Improvements in the amount of $900,000, and authorize an increase in the FY 21-22 Ferry Division capital budget for project number 2140, Ferry Vestibule Rehab, in the amount of $800,000, as concurred with the Finance Auditing Committee and as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
So we have a motion. Now do we have a second?
This is Parr. I'll second.
There, at least at last, is a second. Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns from board members on this item? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please conduct a roll call vote.
Thank you. Voting on item 8A3 with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is also absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosboll.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Terrio.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 13 ayes.
And so that motion too passes. Chair Garbarino, is that what you have for us for today?
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
And thank you, Chair Garbarino. Madam Secretary, the next item, please.
Item 8B is the report of the Rules, Policy, and Industrial Relations Committee meeting of Thursday, March 24th, and that summary of recommendations for this meeting can be found on page 55 of your packet.
Fellow directors, the action items in 8B also were discussed yesterday, in this case at the Rules Committee meeting, before coming before us today. Chair Hernandez, your committee's report, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Before jumping into recommendations, I just want to say a few words and thanks to the staff for their work in bringing forth such creative ideas to help the district fill vacant positions. As we heard at the committee yesterday, staff is being very innovative in their recruitment efforts, and creativity is certainly in order, given that there's such huge competition for recruitment of staff in San Francisco in general, the Bay Area in general, and also nationally. And also, with the knowledge that San Francisco itself, my jurisdiction, is preparing a rather robust recruiting campaign to fill city workers' shortfall up to about 30% in some departments. That campaign is set to be launched, I believe, after some negotiations with city bargaining units are concluded. That bargaining involves treatment of wages as well, and I understand that there are likely to be some substantial increases to those. So lots of challenges, but again, thank you very much to staff for your work on this, and we look forward to seeing the results of your efforts. Also, I need to thank Artemis Davenport, our director of the the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. If there is a hardest working person in Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Programs, it is Artemis Davenport, as was clear in yesterday's committee meeting, during which several committee members recognized her for her efforts in running that program for us. It is a very complex program, and a lot of what she does is integral to our being able to get funding from, for example, the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration. So it's very, very important work, difficult work, and it's highly appreciated. Also, Artemis Davenport has been critical in some of the evaluations that we've been taking up in our committee on equity and diversity issues. I chair that committee, and just wanted to say a special thank you to Artemis Davenport for her participation and contributions to our committee work. So thank you very much. So with that, Mr. President, the Rules Policy and Industrial Relations Committee met yesterday and is recommending authorization of two items. Board agenda item number 8B1 is to approve a pilot employment recruiting program to assist the district in filling vacant positions that includes a signing bonus for all regular full-time positions, implementation of a signing bonus program for bus operator apprentices, an employee referral program, and to update applicable district policies accordingly, effective through September 30th, 2023, as detailed in the staff report. And Mr. President, I so move.
Thank you, Chair Hernandez, for your valuable comments and for your motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And there is a second. Do any of the directors have questions, comments, or concerns on item 8B1? And again, hearing none, Madam Secretary. Yes, there is. Go ahead.
My comment wasn't on necessarily on item 8B1. I just also wanted to acknowledge the great work done by Ms. Davenport. I was one of the directors that commended her work. I have been to several of the DBE and SBE programs that she has hosted, and she really has gone out of her way to help build a coalition to provide outreach to disadvantaged business enterprises, small business enterprises, and to try to attract subcontractors and, where appropriate, for very small contracts, prime contractors among the DBE and SPE community. And she's been doing this for a very long time. So I just wanted to commend her as well on her work and make sure that the opportunity didn't pass to really applaud her and the district for all they're doing to try to encourage participation on district contracts.
Thank you, Director Tier. Dorothea, rather. Is there anyone else from the board who has comments or questions? Then, Madam Secretary, let's have another roll call vote.
Thank you. Voting on item 8B1 with a first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is also absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosbol.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Meston.
A hearty aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes, and I agree with my co-directors on very hard work on the DBE and ISB. Thank you.
Thank you. First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Therio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 13 ayes.
And so that passes heartily. Chair Hernandez, continue your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Second item and final item, the Rules Policy and Industrial Relations Committee is also recommending authorization of Board Agenda Item number 8B2 to approve an updated codification of the medical benefits policy for represented and administrative retirees, including bus operators, their spouses, dependents and survivors of active employees, as defined in the resolution attached to the staff report, which reflects the recently implemented transition to medical benefits administered through CalPERS, and to amend the Human Resources Guide accordingly as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
And there was considerable detail in that staff report. Thank you, Chair Hernandez. There's a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's a second. Thank you. Are there questions, comments, or concerns from board members on this item? Again, hearing none. Madam Secretary, let's have a roll call vote.
Thank you. Voting on item 8B2 with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is also absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosbol.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Meston.
Aye.
Director Milgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Therio.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 13 ayes.
Thank you. The item is adopted. Chair Hernandez, do you have anything more for us?
No, Mr. President, that's all I have. That concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Hernandez. Madam Secretary, the next item on the agenda, please.
Thank you. We're moving on to item 8C, and that's a report of the Finance Auditing Committee meeting from yesterday, Thursday, March 24th. And that summary of recommendations is also found on page 57 of your packet. And I'll turn it back to you, President Therio.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Once again, the action items in 8C were well discussed at yesterday's Finance Auditing Committee meeting before coming before us again today. Chair Rabbit, your committee's report, please.
Thank you, President Thurio. The Finance Auditing Committee met yesterday and is recommending authorization of Board Agenda Item 8C1 to approve actions as detailed in the staff report relative to the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program to authorize the General Manager or his designee to execute and submit related certifications and assurances and agreements on behalf of the district and approves submission of the grant application for a new vessel acquisition project in fiscal year 21-22, and I so move.
Thank you, Chair Rabbit. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
And we have a second. Thank you. Are there questions, comments, or concerns on this one? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, another roll call vote.
Thank you. We're voting item 8C1 with the first and second, Director Arnold is absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosbol.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Meston.
Aye.
Director Milgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Tirio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 13 ayes.
Thank you, and that item passes. Chair Rabbit, on with your report, please.
Thank you very much. The Finance Auditing Committee is also recommending authorization of Board Agenda Item 8C2 to approve renewal of the annual delegation of Investment Management Authority to the Auditor Controller for fiscal year 22-23 as per Rule 11, Investment Policy, Section E, Delegation of Authority of the Rules of the Board, and as provided for in the California Government Code Section 53607, as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
Thank you, Chair Rabbit, for your motion. Do we have a second here?
Second.
A second. Thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none again. Madam Secretary, one more roll call vote.
Thank you. Item 8C2 with a first and second, starting with Director Arnold is absent. Director Conroy is also absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosbol.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Meston.
Aye.
Director Milgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Yes.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Tirio.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 13 ayes.
And 13 ayes means it passes. Chair Rabbit, you have a momentous item for us.
I do. Very significant item, probably one that can be considered generational. The next item in the Finance Auditing Committee is recommending, it is the culmination really of work across multiple district departments to modernize our back-end financial system. I think our general manager mentioned that the current system dates back to the introduction of the first iPhone. So we understand, obviously, the need to modernize the system and keep things running. I think Director Parr yesterday talked about this as in every organization. There is a big one that you only do one of these in your lifetime, and I think this qualifies as that. I can tell you from personal experience, our county went through something very similar in the last 3 years or so. So I know the momentous occasion that this is. It's a huge undertaking, and mention again that I appreciate all the professionalism, the dedication of staff to reach this milestone and bring it forward. So with that, the committee is recommending authorization of Board Agenda Item 8C3 to approve actions relative to the ERP implementation project to 1, authorize execution of contract number 2019-D-059, Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP System and Implementation Services with Tyler Technologies of Yarmouth, Maine, for a 3-year term plus 2 1-year options for access to and maintenance of the system in the amount of $4,352,144. And 2, to authorize the general manager to exercise up to 5 1-year option terms to extend the services for up to a total of 10 years, provided that funding has been allocated in the annual budget and are in the district's best interest. And 3, approve a capital project budget increase of $500,000 in the fiscal year 21-22 district division capital budget relative to capital project number 1810 ERP system replacement as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
Thank you, Chair Rabbit. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, there's a couple of seconds at last. Are there questions, comments, or concerns from board members on item 8C3? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please conduct a roll call vote.
Thank you. We have a first and second for item 8C3. So starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino?
Aye.
Director Giudice? Is absent. Director Grosboll?
Aye.
Director Hernandez?
Aye.
Director Maston?
Aye.
Director Melgar?
Aye.
Director Parr?
Aye.
Director Rabbit?
Aye.
Director Rodoni?
Aye.
Director Snyder?
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier?
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill?
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran?
Yes.
And President Theriault?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 13 ayes.
Thank you. The item passes. Chair Rabbit, do you have more, or are you going out with this particular flourish?
Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chair Rabbit. Madam Secretary, on to the next item in the agenda.
Thank you. The next item, since there's no addresses to the board under agenda item number 8, is item number 10, special order of business. We're going to start with 10A relative to conducting remote meetings, committee and board meetings. Last month, I mentioned staff is following the conversations at the state level on potential changes, but I also like to kind of brief the board on the situation that's in front of us right now. So currently, the governor's state of emergency still exists. And so with that, we are continuing these remote meetings. If the state emergency is lifted, then in the coming months or days, if nothing else changes, such as legislation at the state level, we would be meeting in person at our next meeting. And the challenge of going back to where we were pre-pandemic is that our elevator is now not functioning in this building. And in fact, there's a current request for proposal that's now out to bid for a replacement elevator. So until a replacement elevator is in place, we're planning next steps, which includes moving from a current audio conference format to various other formats, possibly a hybrid, in-person or remote, or video and things like that. But we're also planning for possible in-person meetings as we speak. So we're looking at other locations along our transit corridor or in kind of the counties that can accommodate a 17-member board. So we're looking at regional offices such as MTC to try and borrow space, really, to hold meetings potentially in person. But in the meantime, we're also closely monitoring AB 1944, which is introduced by Assembly Member Alex Leo San Jose. And that bill would specifically remove the requirement that board members who participate remotely do so from a publicly accessible location and be indicated on any posted agenda. And if teleconferencing is used, we'd have to provide a live video stream accessible to the public and open that line up for public comments in a manner which can allow everyone to participate. So we have a couple of challenges in front of us, but really we're looking to some board members in identifying possible locations that also might be available. We looked at community centers in San Rafael. We looked at the Novato City Council chambers. We looked in Petaluma. We looked in Sonoma County, as well as San Francisco. So we are looking for possible places, number one, but absent of anything changing, we're hoping that if the state of emergency is lifted, there will be a timeline for us to become compliant for in-person meetings. With that, we're going to still have to ask for the requirement that this, with the state guidance still in place, that the brief staff report I have on page 59 is to recommend the board continue adopting a resolution to allow us to continue remote meetings in accordance with the current Assembly Bill in place 361. And we'd like to at least ask for that authority first, and then in the meantime, we'll continue to watch. So I can turn it back to you, President Theriault, if you'd have something else you'd like to add.
No, I would encourage the board members to, if they have ideas or the ability to help obtain offsite locations for our meetings, to contact the secretary, Amaretko, and to work with her on this. I will apologize that at one point in the course of this meeting, our blue and gold macaw behind me rang her bell, and some of you may have heard that. That's something we'll all miss, I think, with if we move away from remote meetings, that kind of thing. But in the meantime, I would look for a motion to continue conducting remote business under the current requirements of the state of California.
I would like to. This is Patty. I would like to make that motion, and I will contact and reach out to Amaret. We do have, although it may not be appropriate, it's a private location, but we do have an environmental classroom, and it can hold 100 people, but it would certainly hold us. But I can talk with Amaret later. Thank you.
Yes, and I think kind of conversation. So we have a second. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Yes, second. Director here.
And a couple of seconds. Is there any discussion from board members on this item? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, time for another roll call vote.
Thank you. We're voting on item 10A with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
And this is not an advertisement, but it is centrally located. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosball.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Mastin.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes, and I'd like to comment that I hope it's accessible by public transit. Thanks.
Thank you. First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Theriault.
Yes, and I concur with Director Hill.
Thank you. You have 13 ayes.
And 13 ayes means this one also passes. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 10B is also a recurring item on the agenda now, which is the discussion and possible action to terminate the suspension of board procedural rules and policies for COVID-19 related emergency actions. Mr. Mulligan's brief staff report's on page 61, and he's available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Are there any board members with questions or comments on this item? Then what I would look for is a motion to continue consideration of this item until special order of business, the next regular meeting of the board.
On behalf of President Theriault, because he always makes this motion, I'd like to make the motion.
Thank you, Director Parr. And a second. Madam Secretary, once again, a roll call vote.
Thank you. With the first and second on 10B, starting with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Conroy. It's absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosball.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Mastin.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Theriault.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 13 ayes.
That motion also passes. Continuing with the agenda, we have no unfinished business under item 11 and no new business under item 12. Item number 13 is communications. Colleagues, if you'd like a copy of any communication, please contact the district secretary. That is the end of our agenda, and there are no further items to be presented to the board. Thanks to everyone who joined us today. May I have a motion to adjourn? Anybody wants to say? There was a faint motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And there's a second. Are there any objections to adjourning? Hearing none, we'll adjourn today's meeting in memory of Richard Blum, a longtime member of the University of California Board of Regents, husband of our Senator Dianne Feinstein, and champion of efforts to fight poverty and promote human rights around the world. Memory also of Stephen Gale, chair of the Sonoma County Democratic Party, Congressman Mike Thompson's retired district director and a public transit advocate, and in memory of Madeleine Albright, the 64th Secretary of State and the first woman to lead the State Department. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. This concludes the meeting of the Board of Directors. The time is 11:41 a.m.